nothing tastes as good as skinny feels.
I'm gonna pop the fork out your hand when I say this. You don't need no more cheat meals.
If you've ever scrolled TikTok and found yourself thinking, wow, I really need to change every single thing about myself. I am a terrible person and I'm not doing enough. You are absolutely not alone, especially if you're thinking, oh, I need to shrink my body or I need to eat less. Those are likely the lovely findings of what we're calling skinny talk. And skinny talk has become quite a popular trend. But as someone who has lost over 40 pounds naturally in a healthy way, as well as being a licensed therapist for over 10 years, I realized the impact of both mental and physical health on things like skinny talk. And I absolutely am obviously a proponent of healthy living, and sometimes to the extent of healthy living meaning weight loss. Skinny talk ain't it. And so today I really want to share with you like a psychological breakdown of this. And I want to really talk through not only why it's so harmful, because you probably don't need me to tell you it's harmful. You probably already know this, but why it's harmful and also what we can do to protect ourselves and our mental health from this. So, what is Skinny Talk? Skinny Talk is the corner of TikTok that is promoting thinness for the sake of thinness. And to be honest, I do have a problem with that. We need to stop making thin synonymous with healthy because that's not always the case. Now, I do certainly believe that there's a level of healthiness that can come from being more fit, which, may cause us to be more thin, but all bodies are built differently. And so there's not a one size fits all to every body shape. And just because you're thin does not mean that you're healthy. And just because you are not thin does not mean that you're not healthy. And so, when we look at it on the surface, if we really look at it and see the messages that thin is best and thin is healthy, that's really not true. Now, some of you might be thinking, like, you're a complete hypocrite. You make this kind of content online. Well, no, this is absolutely not the same. The type of content here is really around promoting a healthier lifestyle. I recognize that all bodies look and feel different. And while I might make recommendations to you about weight loss, I want you to do it in a way that's sustainable and because you love your body, not because you hate it. And for the most part, on Skinny Talk, these women don't seem to love themselves very much. And I don't want to assign malice here because I don't necessarily know that these women realize the negative impact they're having. And if I'm being honest with you, when I first started making health, wellness, weight loss content here, even just a few years ago, I think I was giving like some of those vibes because it has taken me some time to really understand and fully comprehend all of this. And honestly, a lot of the people who make Skinny Talk content are very young. And I don't say that to be a jerk. I just know that, like, when I was in my early 20s, like, y'all couldn't tell me nothing. I was as absolutely annoying as you think I would be. Like, you could not tell me nothing. I knew everything about everything and you could not tell me different. And so I think, there's a level of maturity that comes as you get older and more seasoned. And I think some of these women will look back on this content that they created and probably cringe at themselves. And I just think there's a lack of awareness there for a lot of folks. So I don't want to assign motive here and say that these women are doing this with ill intent, but I do think you have to be careful when you have a young audience, right? But I also think a lot of these women are young as well. But the message is pretty clear, regardless of what you're looking at, is that skinny is best. And, if that is the whole goal and focus of your life, that genuinely makes me really, really sad because being fit and healthy should be adding to your life, not taking things away. So when we think about the psychology around TikTok and around this like skinny talk kind of content, why does it make us feel so yucky? Why does it make us feel some type of way? And it's because of the social comparison theory. We're biologically programmed to compare ourselves to others as a way of checking to see how we're doing. And so it's genuinely impossible for us to not look at other people and say, oh, well, they're doing X. So I must not be doing that as well. And when you get on TikTok, especially if you find yourself in the lovely corner of Skinny Talk, you start to see over and over these thin, pretty women who are starving themselves or who don't have any body fat. And suddenly you start to think that that is normal. And when we normalize that behavior, we really are reinforcing a confirmation bias. Confirmation bias being like, we are confirming that we see exactly like that is how it is because that's what we're consistently seeing. And Confirmation bias can be really tricky if you're always looking and seeing other people who are more fit or more thin than you. Heck, I even get caught up into this. As someone who's lost over 40 pounds, I do consume a lot of other like fitness content and I'm watching things. And even without being on Skinnytok, I will look at other content creators and be like, wow, her abs look great. Like, why don't I look at that? Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Because I am stuck in that social comparison. And that is just biologically how we're programmed. That's how we survive, is by being able to compare ourselves and see how we're doing. Unfortunately, in this age of social media, that's even more prevalent because we have so many more people that we can see. Even 10 years ago, we couldn't see other people's lives in the way that we can now. And of course, the internet being the internet, for the most part, you see people's highlight reels anyway. And so you start to compare yourself to this highlight reel as opposed to what their actual lives look like. And we really have no idea. And so if you're already somebody who has, concerns about your body or your body image, cough, I don't know anyone who doesn't. I genuinely have never met a woman who is like completely and fully secure in their body, myself included. Like I said, even I have moments. And so if you have the slightest bit of inkling or concern about your body and how you're doing, you're absolutely going to look at these women and compare yourself, even if you don't want to or you don't mean to. Hey guys, if you're finding this video useful or helpful in some way, would you do me a huge favor and give it a thumbs up? It lets YouTube know this is useful or helpful content so that it will share it out to others. I also want to talk about this whole self-deprecating, screaming at you motivation style that they're doing over on TikTok.
How do I stop bored eating? Go to sleep and eat some sleep. Am I big for eating 2 boxes of pasta last night? Of course you are, but you already knew that. What do I do when I eat, but I can't stop eating even when I'm full? Close your mouth up. Go ahead and sew it up with a little string. Cheat meals are, you've had a cheat life. Don't worry about it.
Where they're like calling themselves names and, saying things like,
"You're not a dog, you don't need a treat,"
and stuff like that. The whole just like self-deprecation that comes from, this branch of quote unquote motivation or, disguised as quote unquote discipline. The problem with that is that when you're hearing and giving yourself these kind of messages, you are activating your sympathetic nervous system. You are sending your body a threat response that says you are in danger. And while that may work in the very short term, because you feel threatened, that doesn't have long term positive implications. And in fact, the long term implications of that are the negative self talk, self doubt, and honestly, just like lower levels of mental health. So, psychologically, what works best? Well, what works best is when we say kind and supportive things to ourselves, like, I am worthy of rest, or I'm doing a good job, or I should be proud of all the work that I've done, because this activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to better regulate our emotions. It helps us with long-term motivation, and it also helps us to feel self-reliant and have a positive self-efficacy for ourselves. This is the way that you help to build that consistency. Is you build consistency because you're the person who works out. You're the person who takes care of your body. You're the person who wants to do X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank. And you do that by telling yourself nice things. And so, yes, you can talk dirty to yourself and be mean and get short-term results, or you can talk kindly to yourself and have a higher chance of the long-term results. And the reason that this is such a problem is because this really bleeds into the way that we talk to and about ourselves. And one of the things that you'll know about me if you've been here for very long is I talk about the really true importance of mindset. Yes, sure, food matters. Yes, sure, the fitness matters. But if the mindset isn't there when you are trying to navigate your food choices and when you're trying to navigate your fitness choices, you're absolutely going to go off the rails and you're not going to meet your goals. And this is really what sort of Skinnytok boils down to, is just that. As a therapist, I see women in my office all the time who are negatively impacted by the things they see on social media or the way they treat themselves, whether it's about motherhood, whether it's about fitness, whether it's about weight loss. I see people being constantly impacted by this. And so I really want to help you really assess what are the messages that you are sending to yourself and that you're collecting from this information, and what can we do to protect our own mental state. Sorry, friends, it's a different day because in the middle of editing, I realized I missed a very crucial piece of all the Skinnytok puzzle, which is the relationship around food. So, on Skinnytok, there's very much a low and extreme calorie deficit thing happening. And if you're not in mental health, you may or may not know that EDs are one of the highest, if not the highest. They have the highest mortality rate of all of the other mental health conditions. And so, this is really serious business that we're talking about here. And in many ways, a lot of the dietary things that I see on Skinnytok look a lot like an ED. And if you're not new around here, you know I'm a very big proponent of learning to have a healthy relationship and a balanced relationship with food because I just know how important it is from a mental health standpoint, not only from a vitamins, minerals, nutrient standpoint. I just took a food and mood seminar pretty recently, and within that, she discussed just the relative significance to the different kinds of vitamins and minerals and the cruciality of them in making sure that we have, good cognitive functioning. But not even just that, it's the lack of these minerals can cause things like depression or can cause depression like symptoms or anxiety like symptoms in us when in fact it actually may be a nutrient deficit. And this is something great to talk with a dietitian specifically about if you have one of those, but I thought that was really interesting. The other piece is that I think when we look at especially tracking macros, okay, as you know, if you're not new around here, I am a big proponent of tracking macros. But I think the problem that a lot of people run into with tracking macros from a psychological standpoint is the shame and guilt that gets triggered from tracking said macros. Because oftentimes we look at this thing that we calculated and we go to ourselves, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Why did I eat so much of that? Oh, and so we trigger the shame and guilt response within ourselves. And it took a long time for me to learn and change my relationship with food. And it really has to do with looking at these macro calculators and these calorie calculators from an objective and scientific standpoint and not allow ourselves to get caught up in the shame and guilt, which is a hard skill to learn. And so when you see people promoting this like excessive calorie cut, it can make us think that we're supposed to be doing the same thing as opposed to a much more well-balanced approach from both a mental and physical health perspective of allowing all foods. When you give food neutrality, you actually make it possible for you to have a well-balanced diet and have a space for all of the foods in your diet. So with that, when I'm seeing all these super restrictive meals and I'm seeing all of these like red flags and stuff, it really concerns me that this is what people think you're supposed to do to be on a diet, when if you've been around here any length of time at all, you know that I preach a balanced approach, that I eat all of the foods. It's just that you can't eat all the foods in the mass quantities that you want to, specifically if they're calorically dense, if you are trying to lose weight. But by allowing that food neutrality and giving yourself space to say all food is good food, like food is neither good nor bad. It's all neutral, and it's just about how does it fuel our body and how does it fill our body. Because oftentimes if we really give ourselves a space to reflect, we can find that it's not even so much about overeating as that we probably feel unwell physically if we do things like overeat or eat certain types of food. And so it's really important that we navigate that piece too. And so I didn't want to miss, having a conversation around that as well, and the problematic messages I see with these extreme, calorie cuts and things like that. And sort of talk about the more balanced approach. So now we'll get back to the regularly scheduled program of helping you to navigate supporting your mental health in the Skinnytok era. Okay, back to Alexandria of the past. So what are some of the things that we can do to actively support a positive mental health? And one of that is just curating our feed, right? Especially if you're on TikTok, I think you can select things like not interested and things like that, but accurately curating our feed. And this honestly has everything to do with everything. Like, what are you comparing yourself to? If it's parenting, if it's weight loss, if it's fit, whatever it is, if you are comparing yourself and it's causing you to have a negative mental state, you need to unfollow it for a while. Curate your feed to such that makes you feel powered and motivated. When a channel or a page or something makes you feel some type of way, you already know. And so curate your feed so that you're only seeing and exposing yourself to things that help you to stay in that positive mindset. The other piece is really about changing your own self-talk. And rather than saying things like, I'm not good enough or I'm doing things too slowly, it's I'm building at my own pace. and reaffirming those positive affirmations for yourself rather than the negative ones that you've likely created from consuming this type of content, and give yourself some grace in that, because the reality of it is none of us are ever going to be fully good enough. We could always be or do better because we're human. We're fallible. We're never going to be perfect. And so the seeking after perfection is never going to get you anywhere. So it's always about being a better version of yourself, and comparing yourself to other people as you do that is not going to get you there because you're not them. It's about practicing mindfulness and body awareness. Be aware of what feels good within your own body. Check in within yourself about how are you feeling about certain things and what messages you're sending to yourself, both mentally and physically. I know you can do this. I know that social media can make you feel some type of way about things and make you feel like you're not doing a good enough job. And I want to assure you that if you're moving forward, then you have the potential and power to do whatever it is that you set your mind to. And so I'd love to know from you what you find most effective in terms of helping support your mental health when you watch things like Skinnytok, or how you avoid, getting yourself caught in these cycles. And if you love it here, please subscribe. I'd love to have you here. And until next time, bye, friends.